players were not out there partying. Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell were not drinking. They left early on Friday. Caitlin Clark didn't go out any of the nights.
Peyton, how you feel about tonight though?
Good.
You gonna pop out?
There's no 4-point shots.
You gonna pop out?
They took 4-point shots away.
Oh, that would've been yo. Is you gonna come outside tonight? It's the last
I'm
night.
leaving tonight.
That answer told you almost everything. While other players were planning the next stop, the Indiana Fever stars were already thinking about the flight home. But the real reason this matters goes much deeper than skipping one party.
And where was you at too?
I'm resting up. I'm resting up.
Hey.
And yeah, so obviously you've got the stud buds there being like, why is Caitlin come out tonight? So last night I'm going home. Why didn't I see you the whole weekend? I mean, again, she was at AAU Nationals. She's been at plenty of things.
Resting up, leaving that night, handling commitments away from the all-star spotlight. None of that sounds dramatic by itself, but place it inside Indiana's season and it starts to look like a deliberate choice. All-Star Weekend is designed to keep players visible. There are cameras, sponsor events, social gatherings, and opportunities to build relationships across the league. Players are expected to enjoy themselves because, for a few days, the pressure of the regular season is supposed to disappear. Indiana's core did not appear interested in extending that weekend any longer than necessary. That distinction matters because a team tells you what it values through behavior, not slogans. Every organization says it wants to win. Every coach talks about sacrifice. Every player says the championship is the goal. The revealing moments come when nobody is forcing them to choose between business and celebration. Indiana's players apparently made their choice quickly, and later, we need to discuss the uncomfortable part of this story. Whether that championship focus is enough to overcome the roster and contract problems waiting for the Fever beyond this season.
Definitely anyone except them and their teammates. No. You can see her with Jonquel. Her and Olivia Miles seem to be getting on well. They're just about business. You can see the teams, the players that are just about business. Like, you didn't see Aja Wilson going out there getting drunk. Like, hilariously, Hyden was like,
Notice what the commentary does not prove. It does not prove Caitlin Clark dislikes the other players. It does not prove there is some secret league-wide feud. Seeing one player leave early and another player attend a party is not evidence of resentment. What it does suggest is that Clark keeps a relatively small professional circle and seems comfortable separating league relationships from actual friendships. That is normal in professional sports, even if social media struggles to accept it. Fans often treat every public interaction like a loyalty test. If two stars laugh together, they must be close friends. If they do not appear in the same video, there must be tension. If somebody leaves an event early, people immediately search for the person they were supposedly avoiding. Most of that is projection. Players can respect each other without vacationing together. They can compete intensely without carrying personal hatred. They can also enjoy different lifestyles without one side being more serious than the other. Courtney Williams attending events does not mean she is unconcerned about winning. Clark choosing to leave does not make her morally superior. The relevant question is narrower. What choice best serves the Fever right now? For a team with genuine championship expectations, extra recovery may be worth more than another night of visibility. Indiana's season will not be decided by who appeared in the most All-Star Weekend videos. It will be decided by health, chemistry, execution, and whether its best players are physically ready when the games become unforgiving.
It is very clear in the league, not that there are players divided, where it's like everyone has their own friends. Like, everybody has their own friends. It's clear who, like, if we're gonna be all these weird, like, parasocial caring about these things, it's clear who, like, Caitlin Clark doesn't make it a secret who her friends are in the league. There is no secret. She adds on well.
This is where the conversation becomes distorted by the league's growing celebrity culture. The WNBA is now covered in a way that resembles entertainment news as much as sports reporting. Every interaction is clipped. Every facial expression becomes evidence. Every friendship group is mapped like a political alliance. Fans analyze who follows whom, who sits beside whom, and who appears at which party. That attention can help the league commercially, but it can also erase the actual competition. Caitlin Clark does not need to be socially close with every major player. Aaliyah Boston does not need to perform friendship for a live stream. Kelsey Mitchell does not need to become a constant presence at league events. Their responsibility is to function together inside Indiana's offense, defend at a championship level, and survive the physical demands of the schedule. That is the relationship Fever supporters should care about. Clark and Boston need timing in the pick and roll. Mitchell needs enough touches to remain aggressive without freezing the offense. The wings need to defend without forcing the stars to cover every mistake. Those connections matter more than whether somebody was seen at an after-party. There is also a competitive advantage in refusing to become distracted. Indiana attracts more attention than most teams, which means its players receive more invitations, more questions, and more opportunities to become the story. That can quietly drain a team. Even positive attention consumes energy. Leaving early can be interpreted as a rejection of that circus. Not a rejection of the league, and not necessarily a rejection of other players, but a refusal to spend additional time inside an environment that constantly turns ordinary behavior into controversy.
And by the looks of things, we saw last year after the Commissioner's Cup, and from what we've heard, she seems to be the type of person that is, I'm going to drink 4 times a year, and if I'm going out to drink, I'm getting absolutely wasted, as we saw last year. Caitlin Clark giving alcohol to Lexi Hull before the 3-point contest as a joke. Running in, first thing she did was screaming at the stud buds.
The contrast here is important because Clark has shown that she can celebrate. The argument is not that she lives like a machine and never enjoys herself. The commentary references last year's Commissioner's Cup celebration and jokes involving Lexi Hull. So this is not about personality, it is about timing. Championship teams understand that timing better than everybody else. They know when to relax and when the season demands discipline. They know the difference between celebrating an accomplishment and extending a weekend because everybody else is still outside. Clark's public image sometimes creates an impossible standard. When she appears reserved, critics call her distant. When she celebrates, the same internet can accuse her of seeking attention. When she spends time with teammates, people study who was included. When she goes home, people ask who she was avoiding. There is no version of her behavior that escapes interpretation. The smart response is to stop managing every outside interpretation and prioritize the people inside the building. If Clark, Boston, and Mitchell believe their best move was to rest, leave, or handle personal commitments, then that is the decision that serves Indiana, and it sends an internal message. The Fever stars are not treating the second half of the season like an exhibition tour. They appear to understand that expectations have changed. Indiana is no longer the young team receiving praise simply for becoming competitive. Once a roster is viewed as a contender, entertaining losses stop feeling encouraging. Moral victories disappear. Development is no longer enough. The standard becomes winning playoff series.
Business. Aaliyah Boston checked out after 5 minutes and just basically said, I don't want to play. I don't want to play. I'm focused on the season. Kelsey Mitchell is Kelsey Mitchell. Doesn't matter what happens, Kelsey Mitchell's going to hoop. She is Kelsey Mitchell. The Indiana Fever have 1 goal to win a title.
That may be the clearest section of the entire source. Aaliyah Boston reportedly checked out after limited action and expressed that she did not want to continue playing. The speaker interprets that as a sign she was focused on the season. Kelsey Mitchell, meanwhile, is described in the simplest possible terms. She is going to hoop. Those are different personalities arriving at the same destination. Boston's value is not measured by how hard she chases attention during an exhibition. Her value is in her screening, rebounding, interior passing, defensive positioning, and ability to punish teams that overload toward Clark. Mitchell's value comes from relentless scoring pressure. She bends defenses differently because she does not need a perfect possession to create a shot. Clark organizes the entire structure. Together, those three give Indiana a legitimate offensive foundation. But calling them a big three does not automatically make Indiana a complete championship roster. It only explains why the opportunity feels urgent. The Fever cannot assume this exact combination will remain affordable and intact forever. Careers change, contracts change, collective bargaining changes. Other teams make offers. Injuries interrupt timelines. A championship window is not a permanent possession. It is a temporary alignment of talent, health, and opportunity. That is why leaving All-Star Weekend early can resonate with supporters. It creates the impression that the players recognize the window is open now, but impressions do not win titles. Roster decisions do. Indiana still has to determine whether the supporting cast is strong enough, whether the rotation fits the stars, and whether management is willing to make uncomfortable moves rather than protecting every familiar name.
Do I think they're good enough to do it? No. If there's some weird way of getting off Lexi Hull and Mo Billings without gutting your roster, and for me, I would do that, and I would literally give up pick swaps in the next like 4 drafts. Because, look, so basically you're risking potentially nothing or everything, depending on how the big 3 get on. That being said,
now we reach the first major argument in the commentary. The Fever may need to sacrifice future flexibility to maximize the present. The speaker suggests moving contracts and even surrendering future pick swaps if that creates a stronger championship roster. That is an aggressive position, and it deserves scrutiny rather than automatic approval. Draft capital matters. Affordable players matter. A team that trades too much can become top-heavy and fragile. If the move fails, management may spend years repairing the damage. The Fever also have a uniquely valuable young star, so preserving long-term resources around Clark is not an unreasonable strategy. But excessive caution carries a cost too. A front office can become so obsessed with keeping every future option that it wastes the best opportunity directly in front of it. There is always another draft class, another offseason, and another theoretical target. Meanwhile, the actual core ages, contracts become more expensive, and competitors improve. Indiana's decision should not be framed as reckless spending versus responsible patience. The real question is whether a specific available player materially raises the team's playoff ceiling. Does that player defend the opponent's best wing? Can she stay on the floor when teams hunt mismatches? Does she shoot well enough that defenders cannot abandon her to crowd Clark? Can she rebound outside her area? Can she make the extra pass without slowing the possession? If the answer is yes, then future assets become negotiable. If the player is merely famous, available, or marginally better than the current option, Indiana should keep its resources. That is where championship front offices separate themselves. They do not make moves to create headlines. They identify the precise weakness that will be attacked in a 7-game series and remove it before an opponent does.
they gotta, if they want to keep Kelsey, Mitchell, Caitlin, and Aaliyah, they've got to get off one of those 2 contracts. And that is just next year. If they want to keep them long term, they got to get off both of them. And like, to be fair, after next year, they're both gone. There is a world where Kelsey Mitchell takes a 1-year, $300K below the max deal because she got the super max this year, and Caitlin stays on her rookie deal, and the 2 of Lexi and Mo Billings walk at the end of the year. And
here is the financial complication the all-star conversation was quietly pointing toward. The commentary argues that keeping Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston together could require Indiana to escape other contracts or accept painful financial compromises. Some of the exact salary projections mentioned in the source depend on future league rules and negotiations, so they should not be treated as settled facts. But the structural concern is real. Star cores become expensive. The Fever will eventually face a basic roster-building problem. Clark's value will dramatically exceed the cost of her rookie contract for only a limited period. Boston's next contract will also change the calculation. Mitchell has already established herself as a high-level scorer and has every reason to seek compensation reflecting that value. When several deserving players require major deals at once, sentiment cannot solve the mathematics. Management has to decide which skills are essential, which can be replaced, and which contracts restrict flexibility. That process can become brutal because useful players are often moved not because they failed, but because the team needs a different allocation of money. The speaker specifically questions the long-term viability of keeping certain supporting contracts while paying the central stars. Whether one agrees with the exact players named, the broader point is difficult to dismiss. Indiana cannot pay everybody, as if everybody is equally irreplaceable. Clark's playmaking is irreplaceable. Mitchell's shot creation is extremely difficult to replace. Boston's interior skill and chemistry with Clark carry major strategic value. Once those 3 are prioritized, every remaining contract must be judged by how directly it improves a championship matchup. That means emotional attachment cannot become roster policy. A popular role player may still be movable. A familiar veteran may become too expensive. A former high pick may lose her place. A player who helped build the culture may not fit the final version of the team. Championship contention forces organizations to become honest.
but like, it involves a player who's never left money on the table, and Kelsey Mitchell leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. And it involves Caitlin Clark leaving nearly $1 million on the table. Like, it involves both of those things happening. But yeah, look, it is hilarious where it's like, they said they're flying out tomorrow. Love she's so responsible, partying like they do isn't for everyone.
The salary sacrifices described there would be enormous, and that is precisely why Indiana cannot build its plan around players voluntarily leaving major money on the table. It may happen, Athletes sometimes accept less for stability, fit, or championship opportunity. But a front office cannot treat generosity as a strategy. Players have short careers, uncertain health, and a responsibility to protect their earning power. Kelsey Mitchell would be completely justified in pursuing her market value. Caitlin Clark would be justified in doing the same when eligible. The burden belongs to management. The Fever must create a roster structure that works even when players negotiate rationally. That means avoiding unnecessary money, identifying low-cost contributors before they become expensive, and making trades before contracts lose value. It also means understanding that Clark's presence changes the economics of role players. A guard who can shoot, cut, and defend may perform better beside Clark than she would elsewhere. A mobile big may receive easier scoring opportunities. That allows Indiana to search for fit rather than reputation. The best supporting player is not always the player with the largest individual resume. Sometimes it is the player whose limitations are hidden by the stars and whose strengths become amplified by them. That is how contenders maintain depth. They find defenders who do not demand possessions, shooters who relocate correctly, screeners who understand angles, rebounders who create extra possessions, veterans who can survive 3 bad minutes without turning the game into chaos. Those contributions are less glamorous than an All-Star Weekend appearance, but they decide postseason games. And this is the eventual payoff. The Fever players leaving early matters because it exposes the difference between player commitment and organizational readiness. The core can be completely serious about winning, but that seriousness only becomes a championship if the front office builds a roster worthy of it.
Like, it really became messy. Like, we saw the DIDN shit yesterday. Like, who's to say DIDN wouldn't just randomly pull some shit against Caitlin? I don't think it would matter. But at the same time, like, who's to say something like that wouldn't happen?
This section introduces the danger surrounding league events without offering verified evidence that any specific incident involving Clark was about to happen. The speaker references separate drama and wonders whether something unpredictable could have occurred. That is speculation, and it should remain labeled as speculation. Still, the broader environment deserves attention. All-Star weekends bring competitors, media personalities, live streams, and private social situations into the same concentrated space. One misunderstood exchange can become a viral clip before the people involved have even explained it. For Clark, the risk is multiplied by scale. Any interaction involving her carries greater visibility. A joke can be stripped of context. A refusal to participate can be framed as arrogance. A competitive remark can become evidence of a feud. Leaving reduces exposure to those problems. That does not mean she should hide from the league or avoid every social setting. It means she has the right to calculate whether another night of public interaction provides any meaningful benefit. From Indiana's perspective, the answer may have been no. The Fever need Clark healthy, mentally fresh, and focused on basketball. They do not need her trapped inside another manufactured controversy because somebody pointed a phone at a 10-second conversation. That is the hidden cost of being the league's most scrutinized player. Ordinary mistakes stop being ordinary. Every emotional reaction becomes national content. Every absence becomes suspicious. Every friendship becomes symbolic. The safest approach is often the simplest. Complete the obligations, support the event, and leave before the environment becomes the story.
At the end of the day, with the whole All-Star thing, like, I don't think they cared that much. I think they cared last year because it was in Indiana, and they made sure everybody that was on the team got heavily involved. Like, we saw KK getting involved in like everything back then. We saw them do a whole bunch of things last year again with All-Star being in Indiana, with it not being in Indiana this year. I don't think those Fever players really cared. I really don't. I think they're worried about winning a title, and that's fine.
This is where the source finally says directly what the earlier behavior was suggesting. The Fever may simply care more about the championship race than extending the All-Star experience. Last year's circumstances were different because the event was connected more closely to Indiana. The team had practical and promotional reasons to remain heavily involved. This time, the incentive structure changed. That does not mean the weekend was meaningless. All-Star events can strengthen the league, reward players, and give fans access they do not receive during normal competition. The WNBA benefits when personalities emerge and stars interact outside formal games. But individual players are allowed to rank those benefits differently. Some players recharge through social activity. Others recover by leaving. Some enjoy being around a large group. Others prefer family, teammates, or a smaller circle. There is no universal championship personality. The evidence that matters will arrive after the break. Does Indiana return sharper? Does the offense operate with purpose? Does the defense communicate? Do the players who rested show more energy late in games? If the Fever struggle immediately, leaving early will not become the cause, but the symbolism will lose some power. If they surge, supporters will point back to this weekend as evidence of a team that understood the assignment. That is the risk of creating a public identity around seriousness. Once a team presents itself as locked in, the results must follow. Fans will not accept poor execution from a group praised for avoiding distractions. A team cannot claim championship focus and then repeatedly lose transition assignments, commit careless turnovers, or collapse under pressure. Sacrifice increases expectations. Indiana Stars appear willing to accept that. The remaining question is whether every level of the organization is equally prepared.
It was good. It was good overall that Natisha Heidemann Natisha Heidemann and Courtney Williams. It was kind of cool seeing them, the way they interacted with Caitlin. And it was one of those things, especially for their stream, where it was like Caitlin went out of her way to interact with the stream in different scenarios. Like, you could see that she enjoyed being a part of that. You can see that Caitlin Clark enjoyed being around certain players, and you can see, not that she didn't enjoy being around other players, but it's like you can see the players that are friendly with each other.
The social side of the weekend was not entirely negative. The source describes enjoyable interactions involving players and suggests Clark appeared comfortable around certain people. That detail undercuts the theory that her early departure must have been driven by hostility. She participated, she interacted, she simply did not remain for everything. This distinction should be obvious, yet online discussions frequently erase it. A player can enjoy an event and still decide she has had enough. She can be friendly with league rivals without treating them as close friends. She can laugh during a live stream and still prefer to sleep in her own home. Professional athletes are not obligated to provide fans with a complete social narrative. The intense search for hidden alliances also distracts from a more interesting basketball reality. Clark's relationships across the league will evolve naturally as players compete, train together, and spend more years inside the same professional ecosystem. Some rivalries will cool, some will intensify. Certain players will discover mutual respect. Others may never connect personally. None of that is unusual. The obsession becomes harmful when people use those relationships to question effort or character without evidence. Clark should be judged by how she handles teammates, competition, and public responsibility. Boston should be judged by the same standard. Mitchell should be judged by the same standard. Party attendance is not a reliable measurement of professionalism. Yet in this particular case, leaving early still has symbolic value because it fits everything Indiana says it wants to become. This team wants to graduate from attraction to champion, from interesting to dangerous, from the organization everybody watches to the organization nobody wants to face. That transition requires more than talent. It requires selective attention. The Fever cannot chase every conversation surrounding them. They have to identify what affects winning and discard what does not.
Like, you're never going to see a scenario where Caitlin and Aja are super friendly. Like, I think Aja in 2024 sat down beside Caitlin and Aaliyah to try to make it a thing, but it's like, that's fine. There's no resentment there at this point in time between them. Let's be real. I think Aja, is a lot more secure in the fact she realistically is the GOAT. Angel and Caitlin are never going to get on. All of that is pointless at the end of the day, because the most important thing is winning a championship.
And that final point closes the social argument. Not every star is going to become close with every other star. Some pairings may always carry competitive distance. That does not automatically create resentment, and it does not need to be repaired for public comfort. The WNBA is healthier when its players are allowed to compete without pretending the league is one giant friendship group. Rivalries create stakes. Different personalities create stories. Respect does not require constant public affection. For Indiana, however, the central relationship is internal. Can Clark, Boston, and Mitchell remain aligned when playoff pressure rises? Can the coaching staff establish roles that survive difficult stretches? Can management find the wing defense and roster flexibility required to support them? Can the Fever resist the temptation to confuse popularity with completeness? Those questions will determine whether the early exit from All-Star Weekend becomes a memorable sign of championship discipline or merely a small detail from a season that ended short of its goal. The players appear to be signaling urgency. Clark handled her commitments and left. Boston limited her participation. Mitchell maintained the same basketball-first identity she has carried for years. None of that guarantees a title, but it removes one possible excuse. They are not acting as though there will always be another perfect opportunity. Now the organization has to respond with the same urgency. It has to evaluate contracts without sentiment, pursue upgrades without panic, and build around the specific advantages its stars provide. Clark's passing should create efficient offense. Mitchell's scoring should punish switches and broken possessions. Boston's interior presence should force defenses to choose what they are willing to concede. Every supporting decision must strengthen that equation. The Fever do not need to win the social portion of All-Star Weekend. They need to win the possessions that decide playoff games. They need stops after timeouts, clean late-game spacing, reliable rebounding, and enough defensive versatility to survive when opponents target weaknesses repeatedly. That is the standard their stars appear to be embracing. So which interpretation do you believe? Did Indiana's players leave early because they were genuinely locked in on a championship run, or are fans attaching too much meaning to a simple personal choice? Comment your answer, like the video, and subscribe for the next breakdown.